That's my mommy. You left her. Why? Have you ever been called out by a child for something you weren't ready to face? A national TV show turns into a family reunion and a reckoning. Would you walk away from fame to fix the family you didn't know you broke? The room went still. Thousands of viewers across the country froze on their couches. Phones slipped from hands. Twitter exploded. Camera operators looked at the director for what to do, but she didn't blink, just mouthed, "Keep rolling." On the set of America's most beloved daytime talk show, a 5-year-old boy had stood up from the audience, pointed straight at the host, and asked the one question no producer could have scripted. "Why did you leave Mommy?" The man holding the microphone, the man smiling into every living room at 10 a.m. on weekdays, stood frozen. Otis Langford, the face of Family Time, the Millionaire host known for celebrating love, laughter, and fatherhood, stared at the child, and then at the woman sitting 2 seats away. His voice dropped to a whisper, barely audible through his earpiece. "Jada." The woman in the front row didn't move. Her hand tightened around the little boy's. She sat tall, composed, but anyone looking closely would have seen her eyes, wide, brimming, and locked onto his. She didn't say a word, but her silence said everything. Otis's fingers trembled around the mic. His polished suit suddenly felt like sandpaper. The lights above his head, which usually gave him life, now burned into his skull like interrogation lamps. He looked back at the boy. "Your name? What's your name?" The boy grinned, innocent and unaware of the storm he had just summoned. "Warren Monroe." There was a ripple in the crowd. A gasp here. A turned head there. The name echoed louder than any thunderclap. Jada's last name. His last name was Monroe. Otis turned pale. "Do you want to say something to the audience, Warren?" he asked, voice trembling. Warren held the mic bravely, like he was part of the show. "I want to be like you when I grow up," he said. Otis blinked. Warren continued, "But you forgot me. Mommy said you were working hard, that you were busy, but I see you on TV every day, and you're funny. But you didn't come home." A tear fell from Otis's cheek. He didn't wipe it. The audience didn't clap, didn't laugh, didn't move. Silence stretched so thick it became unbearable. Then Warren said softly, "That's my mommy. You left her. Why?" Producers scrambled. Assistants whispered frantically. Security asked if they should escort anyone. Someone suggested ending the show early. Otis's manager, Clay Mendel, barked into his Bluetooth earpiece, pacing like a madman. "Get ahead of this. Lock the audio. Cancel post-production uploads. Get a PR draft out now." Sloane Barrett, Otis's fiancée and an Instagram-famous entrepreneur, stormed into the green room, her stilettos stabbing the floor with every step. "Who the hell is that woman?" she snapped. "Otis. Who is she?" Otis was standing by the stage exit, frozen. His hands still shook. His mind wasn't in the studio. It wasn't in the green room. It was 5 years ago. Soft-spoken, literature major, wore oversized sweaters and kept a pen behind her ear. She was calm, bookish, beautiful in a way that didn't demand attention. It invited it. Otis remembered their late-night talks at the campus library, their quiet walks, behind the quad, and the night he ran into her dorm shouting, "I made it, baby. I got signed to a real show." He could still see the way she smiled, how she laughed as they danced on that old rug, music blasting from her laptop speakers. That was the last real night he remembered before his life took off. His voice cracked. "I need to see her." "See who?" Clay asked. "The kid?" "No," Otis said, already moving. "Jada." Outside the studio, Jada stood near the curb, holding Warren's hand tightly. Her jaw was clenched, but her fingers trembled. Narissa, her best friend, stood nearby, stunned silent for the first time in her life. "Jada." Otis's voice rang behind her. She didn't turn. "Jada," he said again, closer now. She finally turned. Her face was calm, but her eyes were glassy. He stopped 2 feet away, breath heavy. "Tell me you knew," she said coldly. Tell me you ignored me on purpose. Tell me this wasn't just a mistake your people made." Otis tried to speak. His voice wouldn't come. I didn't know," he finally stammered. "I swear, my assistant. I was told you moved on, that you didn't want contact." Jada laughed, but it wasn't amused. It was cracked and tired. "Otis, I called you. I left messages. I begged. You didn't even return a single call." She gripped Warren's hand tighter. "I gave birth alone. I worked double shifts. I raised our son while you smiled into cameras and told America how much you value family. You think I wanted contact? I wanted support. I wanted you." Otis stepped forward. I'm sorry, I can't fix it in one day, but can I see him again? Just once more, please." Jada looked down at Warren, who was now tugging her sleeve. "Mummy, can we go home?" Otis crouched, gently facing the boy. "Hey, Warren, I'd really love to hang out with you again. Would you like that?" Warren hesitated, then looked at his mom. Jada didn't answer right away. She just stared at Otis, searching for any truth in those eyes. Then she nodded once. "1 hour," she said. "Tomorrow." At the park, she turned, walked away, and Otis stood there, watching the child who looked so much like him disappear into the city crowd. Otis sat on a bench, fidgeting. He'd barely slept, didn't even tell Clay or Sloan where he was going. Then he saw them, Jada in jeans and a soft blue shirt. Warren skipping beside her, holding her hand. They approached slowly. "You came," Otis said softly. "You asked," Jada replied. "You have 1 hour." She sat on a nearby bench, arms crossed. Her eyes never left them. Otis knelt next to Warren at the sandbox. "So, do you like building castles?" Warren nodded, serious. "But they always fall down." Otis smiled faintly. "Some things are worth rebuilding." They played in silence for a moment. Otis handed him a shovel. Warren laughed when it spilled on Otis's shoes. "Do you like stories?" Otis asked. Warren nodded again. "But Mummy tells them better." Otis turned slightly toward Jada and smiled. She always did. Have you ever seen a child speak the truth adults hide from? Comment below if you've witnessed a moment that changed everything in a split second. Senior year on campus had a kind of quiet magic. For most people, it was just deadlines and job fairs. But for Jada Monroe, it was the year she fell in love with the man who made her believe forever could exist. Otis Langford wasn't the loudest guy in the media program. He didn't party like the rest. But when he walked into a room, people noticed. He had a calm kind of charm, like he knew who he was but didn't need to prove it. The first time he saw Jada, she was sitting in the back of the library, tucked between stacks of poetry books. Her reading glasses kept sliding down her nose, and her pen tapped softly on a journal page. Otis had walked past her 3 times before he found the courage to speak. "You write too?" he asked, tilting his head slightly. Jada looked up, eyebrows raised. "Depends," she replied. "Do text messages and grocery lists count?" He smiled. "Only if they rhyme." That broke the ice. From that moment on, they were inseparable. They didn't fall in love with fireworks and grand gestures. They fell in love slowly, through late-night study sessions, cheap takeout dinners, and whispered conversations in empty hallways. Otis would walk Jada to her dorm every night, even if it meant crossing campus in the rain. He never tried to rush her, never pushed. He was patient, thoughtful. He listened when she talked about her mom's bad health and her father walking out when she was 12. He respected the boundaries she had built out of past pain. Jada didn't care about his money or his media connections. She liked that he quoted movies out of nowhere and cried when they watched documentaries about children. She liked his awkward dance moves, his beat-up sneakers, his dreams. And he had big dreams. "I'm going to host a national talk show one day," he told her one night, lying on her twin mattress, staring at the ceiling fan. Jada chuckled. "With what audience?" "Your 5 cousins and my cat." He turned his head to her and smiled. "I'm serious. I want to talk about real families, real stories. No scripts. Just love, Parenting, healing, stuff that matters. And where do I fit in that dream? She asked. He didn't hesitate. You're the reason for it. It wasn't just words. Otis made her believe. He brought her flowers he couldn't afford, took her to poetry nights, wrote her silly notes before every midterm. She found one inside her pencil case that read, "You're smarter than this exam and prettier than this classroom. Knock it out, Queen." When she got the highest score in her literature class, he threw her a 2-person party with dollar store decorations. They talked about everything, where they'd live, how many kids they might want, what names they liked. He kissed her forehead every time he left, and he always said it before walking out the door. "You're my whole world." Then came the news. Otis had been auditioning quietly behind the scenes, sending tapes, doing online pilots, taking red-eye trains into the city for interviews. One evening, he burst into Jada's dorm like a storm. "I made it, baby," he shouted. She jumped up from her desk, heart racing. "Made what?" He grabbed her and spun her around. "They signed me, a real network, syndicated." She laughed and screamed with him. They danced on the old carpet, holding each other tight. That night, they didn't sleep. They dreamed together, with the windows open and the stars listening in. But 3 weeks later, everything changed. First, the calls slowed. Then the texts got shorter. Then, nothing. Jada brushed it off. New job, new city, maybe he was adjusting. But by week 2, she started to worry. By week 3, she was scared. She called. "Hi, it's me. Just checking in. Let me know you're okay." No answer. She called again. And again. Voicemail. Finally, someone else picked up. "This is Otis's assistant. He's currently unavailable." Jada paused. "Can you tell him Jada called?" Silence. "I'll pass it on." Click. She stared at her phone for a long time. A week after graduation, Jada stood in the bathroom, holding a pregnancy test. The lines turned pink. She sat on the floor, staring at the wall, unable to breathe. Outside the door, her mom called out, "You okay, baby?" Jada didn't answer. Her eyes filled with tears. She picked up her phone again. One more time. Ring. Voicemail. She dropped the phone on the floor and curled into herself. She never cried like that before. Otis was on national television the next day. Jada didn't mean to watch. It was playing in the background while she worked at the diner. She froze when she heard his voice. There he was, wearing a suit, smiling into cameras, speaking about valuing love, family, and truth. A coworker commented, "He's kind of cute." Jada nearly collapsed. The next few weeks were a blur. She told her mom. Her mom cried, but held her close. They moved into a smaller apartment. Jada took a job at a bookstore and picked up evening shifts at the diner. Her body changed. Her mind struggled to keep up. She wanted to hate him, but she couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard him say, "You're my whole world." She had to stop believing it. 9 months later, she gave birth alone. She named him Warren. His nose was Otis's. His eyes were hers. She held him against her chest and whispered, "I'll never let you feel abandoned." No flowers, no cameras, no promises, just a mother and her son, and a world that had already started moving without them. Warren Monroe came into the world with a soft cry and steady breath. He didn't scream. He didn't fuss. He blinked up at Jada like he had already seen the world and knew who he belonged to. The nurses said he was calm, observant. Jada said he was perfect. She lay in that hospital bed with no one beside her but her mother and a paper form asking for the father's name. She left it blank. The first few months were hard, really hard. Jada barely slept. Warren needed formula, diapers, doctor, visits, rent. The world didn't stop just because she had a baby. Life didn't hand her a discount for heartbreak. She returned to the bookstore within 6 weeks, working the morning shift before heading to the diner every afternoon. She wore compression socks to keep her legs from giving out and kept baby wipes in her handbag next to old poetry books. Her co-workers admired her strength, but none of them knew that some nights she sat in the shower and cried into a towel so Warren wouldn't hear. She never blamed her son. She blamed the man who used to kiss her forehead and whisper forever. As Warren grew, so did her heart. He was curious and silly, with wild curls and a dimple on one cheek. He hated loud noises, but loved bedtime stories. Every night, Jada would read him a tale from the same storybook Otis once gifted her in college. Warren called it the Castle Book. He'd point at the prince and ask, "Is that Daddy?" And Jada would smile softly and say, "He's someone special, baby. But you're the real prince." It wasn't a lie, but it wasn't the whole truth either. She just wasn't ready to open that chapter. The years passed in quiet rhythm. Work, daycare, rent, rinse, repeat. But through it all, Jada never lost her softness. She smiled at neighbors, helped kids with homework at the library, took Warren to the park every Sunday. She never mentioned Otis by name. But every now and then, when Warren was asleep, she'd scroll past his photos on social media, smiling into cameras, hosting big name guests, doing fatherhood specials. It burned, not because she wanted his fame, but because he had stolen her story and told it to the world like it wasn't hers to begin with. Then came the day that Narissa showed up at her door waving 2 shiny tickets. "Girl, guess who got front row seats to family time with Otis Langford?" Jada froze at the sound of his name. "I don't want them," she said immediately. Narissa raised a brow. "You don't even know what I'm going to say. You just did." "Jada, look at me." She did. Narissa softened her voice. "It's not about him. It's about Warren. That boy watches that show like it's church. You know it." Jada exhaled slowly. "I can't face him. What if he sees me?" "He won't," Narissa said. "You'll sit quietly and we'll leave the moment the cameras go off. But this could be something your son remembers forever. A good memory. No lies, no pain, just a day with his hero." Jada glanced over her shoulder. Warren was jumping on the couch in his dinosaur pajamas, humming the family time theme song. She sighed. "Fine, but we're not staying after." The studio was colder than she expected. Bright lights, huge audience, stage glittering with set pieces and flowers. Jada wore a long coat and sat low in her seat, hoping to disappear in the crowd. She kept her hand tightly around Warren's. He, on the other hand, was buzzing with excitement. "Is that Otis? Is that really him?" "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely above air. Otis walked onto the stage in a sleek grey suit. The audience clapped. Warren clapped harder than anyone. Jada didn't move. The show began. Otis smiled wide. His voice was smooth, confident. He joked with the crowd, hugged a guest, talked about the importance of fatherhood, gave advice to a struggling single dad. Jada's jaw clenched. Warren whispered, "He sounds like you, Mommy." Her heart broke in 3 directions. She nodded slowly. The final segment began. Otis moved into the crowd, mic in hand, asking audience members light-hearted questions. Jada shrank in her seat. Otis made his way toward their row. Her breath caught. He turned and faced Warren. "Well, hey there, young man. What's your name?" Warren smiled wide. "Warren Monroe." Otis blinked. "And what do you want to be when you grow up?" Warren tilted his head. "I want to be like you." The audience chuckled. Otis smiled politely. Then Warren added, "But why did you leave Mommy?" Silence. The camera didn't cut. Otis froze. Warren pointed toward Jada. "That's my mommy. You left her. Why?" The crowd gasped. Heads turned. Otis's smile disappeared. His hand trembled. He looked at Jada. She sat still, tears in her eyes. Her fingers gripped the seat. Her jaw locked in place. Otis whispered, "Jada?" That was the moment the world flipped. Backstage was chaos. Clay's voice echoed through the hallway. "We need a statement." "No, 3 statements. I want press drafts ready in an hour. This is going viral. Sloane stormed out of the makeup room. Is this real? Did you cheat on me with some random woman and have a child? Otis didn't answer. He was already heading for the exit. He didn't care about Clay, or the audience, or the cameras still rolling. He needed to see Jada. Outside, Jada was already pulling Warren's hoodie on and trying to call a cab. Her hands were shaking. Narissa stood guard beside them, eyes scanning for trouble. Then, they heard his voice. Jada. She didn't turn. Jada, wait. She turned slowly. Her eyes didn't flinch. Otis jogged to her, slowed when he saw her face. You knew, she said flatly. He stopped. You knew I was pregnant, and you chose your career. No, I didn't know. Don't lie to me. I'm not. Otis. Her voice broke for the first time. I called. I left voicemails. I begged. I wasn't trying to trap you. I was trying to tell you. You never picked up. He blinked. I swear. My assistant told me you were moving on, that you said not to contact you. She looked at him like he was a stranger. I raised your son alone. I missed rent to buy diapers. I worked double shifts so he could have a birthday cake. And while I was doing that, you were smiling on national TV talking about family. Otis tried to speak, but no words came. Warren tugged her sleeve. Mommy, can we go now? Otis knelt beside the boy. Hey, Warren, would you like to hang out sometime? Just us? Warren looked at Jada. She studied Otis's face. He looked older, softer, but his eyes, those were the same. She nodded once. 1 hour, tomorrow. The park. She turned and walked away. Otis watched them disappear into the crowd. He had once told her, "You're my whole world." Now, that world was walking away with his son in her arms. The park was quiet when Otis arrived the next morning. He had barely slept. His phone was filled with unread texts from Clay and over a dozen missed calls from Sloane. The tabloids had already picked up the clip. Social media was on fire. Headlines like, "Daytime host hides love child? Who is? Warren Monroe." The mom Otis left behind Otis ignored it all. None of those headlines mattered more than seeing Warren again, more than seeing Jada again. He spotted them from across the park. Warren was chasing a butterfly. Jada stood by a bench, arms folded. Her eyes met his for a split second. No warmth, no hate, just watchfulness. Otis walked up slowly. "Hey," he said. Jada didn't reply. She pointed to the nearby sandbox. "You've got 1 hour." He nodded and crouched beside Warren. The boy was digging with a red plastic shovel, tongue sticking out slightly in concentration. "What you building?" Otis asked. "A castle," Warren said. "But it keeps falling down." Otis smiled gently. "Some castles need a better foundation." Warren handed him the second shovel. "You can help." They worked in silence for a bit. Otis carefully matched Warren's rhythm, never leading, only following. He wasn't trying to impress. He was just there, and that, for Warren, was already more than enough. On the bench, Jada watched every movement like a silent guard. It had taken 5 years to build the life she had now. Not a glamorous one, not easy, but stable, quiet. There had been no boyfriends, no relationships. She had enough on her plate raising a child and holding down 2 jobs. The nights were long. The bills were tight, but she had never regretted Warren, not even once. He had given her purpose in her most painful season. Jada remembered the early mornings. Clocking into the bookstore at 7 a.m., Warren strapped to her back in a wrap. The owner, a kind elderly man named Mr. LeBeau, allowed her to bring the baby because she couldn't afford daycare. She stocked shelves with one hand, held a pacifier in the other. She would memorize book prices, organize author sections, and sneak in storytime breaks when Warren got fussy. Customers would often stop and ask, "How do you do it?" She would smile politely, but the truth was, she didn't know how. She just had to. In the evenings, she'd leave the bookstore, take a quick bus ride across town, and clock in at a local diner as a waitress. Her mom watched Warren during the night shift. By the time she returned home, her ankles ached and her back throbbed. She'd kiss her sleeping baby and sit on the floor next to his crib, wondering if Otis ever thought of them. She never talked about him. Not to her friends, not to her co-workers, not even to her own mother after the first year. It was like Otis had been a story she once wrote, but lost the ending. Still, she didn't erase him from Warren's life. Whenever her son pointed to the man on TV and asked, "Is that Otis?" she'd answer, "Yes." When he asked, "Is he a good guy?" she'd pause, then say, "He used to be." That was the only truth she could manage. She didn't tell Warren that Otis was his father. She didn't want Warren to feel unwanted. And she didn't want to deal with the day he'd ask, "Why didn't he come back for me?" Now, that day had come, on live television. Back at the sandbox, Otis and Warren were laughing. Warren had dumped sand into Otis's shoes and declared it revenge. Otis played along, groaning and shaking out his shoes, smiling so wide it made Jada's stomach twist. He looked like the version she remembered, the boy who used to tickle her, under her blanket, who brought her midnight hot cocoa in a plastic mug. He wasn't acting. He wasn't charming an audience. He was being present. And that scared her more than if he had walked away. Warren ran to the monkey bars, giving them a moment alone. Otis stood beside her. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for letting me see him." Jada crossed her arms tighter. "You've got 30 minutes left." Otis nodded. He shoved his hands in his pockets and stared at the ground. "I was 23, he said. "Stupid, blind, so hungry for success that I didn't stop to ask what it would cost." She didn't answer. "I didn't know you were pregnant. I swear I didn't." She turned to him. "And what if you did? Would it have changed anything?" Otis paused. "I think it would have ruined me. At the time." Jada raised an eyebrow. "Wow. Great answer." "No, I mean emotionally. I would have known I abandoned something real. I think I had to believe you left me, just so I could live with myself." She stared at him. "You lied to yourself, and left us to survive the truth." Otis's face fell. "You're right." Warren came running back, out of breath. "Mummy, can I go play 5 more minutes?" She looked at him, then nodded. Otis crouched and handed Warren a juice box from his backpack. Warren took it and smiled. "Thanks, Mr. Otis." Otis blinked at the name. "Mr. Otis." He nodded. "Anytime, buddy." Warren ran back off again. Otis stood slowly. "She told him who I was." "No," Jada said. "He doesn't know." He looked at her, confused. "You never told him?" She shook her head. "He just thinks you're someone kind from TV." Otis swallowed. "Why not tell him?" "Because I didn't want him growing up thinking he was unwanted." They stood there in heavy silence. Otis looked at the boy. "I want to know him, Jada. I want to be part of his life." She glanced at him. "I want to," he continued, "read him bedtime stories. Pick him up from school, be someone he counts on." Jada cut in. "Don't say what you're not ready to do." He nodded. "I mean it," she said. "Don't get his hopes up if you're going to disappear when it gets hard." Otis looked her in the eyes. "I disappeared once. I'm not doing that again." She looked away. "He's used to me being the only one showing up. Then let me earn his trust." She let that settle for a moment, then gave a tired sigh. "You can call tomorrow. But don't show up uninvited." Otis nodded again. "Of course." Warren returned, dirt on his cheeks, smiling like the world was brand new. Otis bent down and said softly, "I'll see you soon, okay?" "Okay." Warren beamed. Jada took his hand, and as they walked away, Otis stood still, watching the only thing he'd ever built that couldn't be bought. The next few days moved slower than usual. Jada tried to focus on work, but her thoughts stayed on the park, on Otis, on Warren's face when he laughed at a joke only Otis could have told. She knew her son was smart, smarter than she ever gave him credit for, and he was noticing things. That night, while she made dinner, Warren sat at the table coloring. "Mummy," he said without looking up, "why doesn't Mr. Otis have kids?" Jada kept her eyes on the pot of boiling water. Why do you ask? Because he looked at me like he missed me. She nearly dropped the spoon. Warren continued, still focused on his drawing. And he knew how to tie my shoe real fast, like he's done it a lot. She turned around, slowly. Warren. He looked up, his eyes wide, innocent. Jada knelt beside him. There's something I need to tell you. Warren's hand paused over the crayon. She hesitated. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She couldn't do it. Not yet. Mr. Otis is someone Mommy used to know. A long time ago. Warren tilted his head. Is he good or bad? She swallowed. He's trying to be good. Warren nodded like that was enough. Then he asked, Can I see him again? She forced a smile. We'll see. That evening, Jada sat on the couch, legs tucked under her, staring at the blank TV screen. Nerissa called, but she didn't pick up. Her mind was too full. Otis hadn't contacted her since the park. No surprise, really. That was his style. Sweep in, stir up the storm, then vanish before the clouds settled. Still, something about his face at the park had looked different. Not fake, not scripted. He wasn't TV Otis. He was the boy she once loved. The one who whispered, You're my whole world. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. She debated, then answered. Hello? Jada. It's me. His voice was quiet. Careful. She exhaled. I told you not to call without asking. I know. I'm sorry. Can I take him out sometime, just for ice cream or a movie? She hesitated. He doesn't know who you are. I don't expect him to. I'm okay being Mr. Otis's for now. I just want to be around him. She was quiet. Then you pick him up. You return him. No photographers. No drama. Understood. She gave him a time and place. He thanked her. She didn't say goodbye, just hung up. Saturday afternoon, Otis arrived in a beat-up black sedan. Not the showy car she expected. Warren ran to the window. It's Mr. Otis. Jada helped him put on his shoes. Remember, she said, crouching in front of him. You stay close. You be polite. And if anything feels weird, you call me right away. Warren nodded with full trust. Otis waited by the car, holding a booster seat in one hand and a small teddy bear in the other. Thought he might like a friend, Otis said. Jada watched him buckle Warren in like a natural. Her chest ached. She watched them drive away. They went to the zoo. Warren pointed at every animal, asking questions like a detective. Otis listened, answered when he could, laughed when he didn't know. They shared ice cream and popcorn. Otis bought him a giraffe hat that Warren wore proudly the entire day. Later, they sat under a tree near the exit. Can I tell you a secret? Warren asked. Otis leaned in. Of course. I think my mommy is the best in the world. Otis smiled. I agree. She works so much, but she still makes me pancakes on Saturdays, even if she's tired. Otis nodded, trying to swallow the lump in his throat. I wish she wasn't sad sometimes. Otis's voice cracked. She's sad? Yeah, she doesn't say it, but I know. Otis stared at the little boy sitting beside him. A boy who had his nose, his stubborn eyebrows, his heart. When Otis brought Warren back, Jada opened the door before they even knocked. He was holding a balloon, a plastic giraffe, and the biggest grin. Jada raised her eyebrows. I may have overdone it, Otis said. She crossed her arms. You think? Warren ran inside, already talking about monkeys and zebras and the hugest ice cream cone ever. Otis stood there awkwardly. Jada finally stepped outside, closing the door behind her. Thank you, she said. He had fun. Otis looked her in the eyes. Can I take you out? She blinked. What? Not a date, just dinner, talk, no kid, no cameras, just us. Jada shook her head slowly. Why now? Because I owe you answers, and I want to give them. She hesitated, then whispered, Fine, one dinner. And if you say anything rehearsed, I'm walking out. Otis held up his hands. No scripts. I promise. That Friday, he picked her up at 6. She wore a simple black dress and flat shoes. Her hair was up, no lipstick. Otis didn't say a word, just smiled. They went to a quiet restaurant across town. No reservations, no valet, no press. They ordered burgers and fries, sat in a corner booth, laughed a little, cried a little. Otis told her everything, how his first year in the spotlight was chaos, how he lost control of his own life, how his manager kept his circle tight, how he believed lies because they were easier than truth. I thought if I called, you'd say you didn't want me. Jada looked down. I waited for you, she said, until I couldn't wait anymore. He nodded. I'm not asking to be forgiven. I'm asking to be seen for who I am now, not who I was. She studied him, then quietly said, That's up to Warren. When he dropped her off, he walked her to the door. No kiss, just a long look. You're still my whole world, he whispered. Jada didn't say anything, but her hand lingered on the doorknob a second longer than it had to. The air in the studio buzzed with excitement. It was the network's highest-rated program of the week, Feel Good Friday. And Family Time with Otis Langford was pulling record numbers. The stage was flawless. Otis's smile, perfect. His suit, custom-fitted. Everything looked effortless, polished, practiced. The producers were thrilled, but no one in that studio, not the audience, not the crew, not even Otis, knew that this Friday would become the most replayed, reposted, and dissected segment of the show's entire history. Jada hadn't planned to go. Even after everything, Warren meeting Otis, their talk at the park, the quiet dinner, they had settled into a cautious rhythm. Otis visited Warren on weekends, brought books, helped with homework. No press, no drama. He didn't push. She didn't invite. And that's how she liked it. But when the show offered Otis a special audience spotlight segment and asked if he did bring a fan guest, he had suggested Warren, just for a 1-minute wave on camera. I'll keep it brief, he had told Jada. We won't even use his name. Just a cute kid moment. She had hesitated for days. Eventually she agreed. Warren was too excited to resist. The studio lights were brighter than Warren expected. He clung to Jada's hand as they took their seats in the front row. His new little blazer made him look older. He sat up straight, eyes glued to the stage. Otis stepped out to roaring applause. He flashed his trademark smile and began his opening monologue, cracking gentle jokes about family and childhood mistakes. Jada sat still, her expression blank, hands folded tightly in her lap. She had warned herself not to feel anything, not to remember, but seeing him up there, moving with such confidence, owning every second, it stirred something she wasn't ready for. Midway through the show, Otis began walking through the crowd. It was a segment he did often, 3 questions with a stranger. He picked random audience members and asked them light, family-themed questions. What's the weirdest advice your dad ever gave you? Who grounded you the longest as a teen? What's one thing you'd tell your younger self? The audience laughed, clapped, engaged. Then Otis made his way to the front row, to Warren. The camera followed. Jada's heart stopped. She didn't expect Otis to speak to their son, not on air. But Otis smiled gently and crouched beside him. Well, hey there, young man. You having fun? Warren nodded shyly. Yeah. What's your name? Warren Monroe. Otis's smile faltered for just a moment. His eyes flicked toward Jada, still seated, frozen. He turned back to the boy. And what do you want to be when you grow up? Warren grinned. I want to be like you. The crowd chuckled. Otis laughed too, softly, nervously. But then, Warren tilted his head. He spoke into the mic, clearly and curiously. But why did you leave Mummy? Silence. Every muscle in Otis's body tensed. The crowd froze. Even the camera operator instinctively stopped moving. Otis blinked. What? Warren pointed toward Jada. That's my mommy. You left her. Why? Jada closed her eyes, not because she was ashamed, but because she knew this was the moment the world would look at her, really look. Otis turned slowly toward her. His lips parted, but nothing came out. For once, the man who always had the words was speechless. The studio was dead quiet. Producers stared at monitors with wide eyes. Clay Mendel, backstage, dropped his clipboard. Otis cleared his throat. He placed his hand gently on Warren's shoulder. "Well, that's a big question," he said. Warren nodded, like it was the most normal thing in the world. Otis stood, looked straight into the camera, then directly at Jada. "I think it's time I answered that." He handed the mic to the floor assistant and walked off set. The camera cut to commercial. The room exploded. Backstage, the control room went into crisis mode. "We've gone off script. Where is he going? Do we kill the feed?" Clay grabbed his headset. "Somebody grab Otis, now." But he was already headed out the back exit. Outside the building, Otis scanned the crowd until he saw her. Jada, standing near the curb, holding Warren's hand, trying to wave down a cab. He ran toward her. "Jada, wait." She didn't move. He stopped a few feet away, breathless. "I need to talk to you." She turned slowly. Her eyes were steel. "Tell me you knew." Otis shook his head. "I didn't." "Tell me you ignored me." "I never." "Tell me this wasn't just a mistake your team made." "I didn't know, Jada." She stepped forward, close enough for him to smell the faint lavender in her scarf. "I called you. I left voicemails. I told your assistant I was pregnant, and still I got silence. Meanwhile, you built a brand around being the father America needs. You think I didn't see you on that stage while I sat in labor alone?" Otis looked shattered. "I believed them when they said you moved on. I was stupid. I was weak. I didn't want to confront what I left behind." Jada's voice cracked. "I didn't move on. I moved forward." "There's a difference." Warren tugged her coat gently. "Mommy, are we mad?" She knelt beside him. "No, baby. We're just answering questions." Otis crouched too, facing him eye to eye. "I'm sorry, Warren." Warren studied him. "Are you gonna leave again?" Otis blinked hard. "No, I'm not." Jada looked at her son, then at Otis. Her throat tightened. "Tomorrow," she said. "1 hour. At the park." Otis nodded. They walked away. Otis stood in the street, alone, his suit still perfect, but everything else inside him cracked. The next morning, the park was drenched in autumn sunlight. The leaves painted the grass in amber, gold, and burnt orange. Parents pushed strollers. Kids screamed from the swings. Life, somehow, was still going on, even after the internet had exploded overnight. Clips of Family Time's disaster moment were already viral. Otis Langford's love child, live on air the day Otis was exposed. Who is Jada Monroe? News anchors debated. TikTok users reenacted the moment. The network issued a soft statement calling it unscripted and heartfelt. But Jada didn't care about the internet. She cared about Warren. He deserved peace. She arrived early, holding Warren's hand. He carried a worn dinosaur toy and a juice pouch. His mood was light, unaware of the storm swirling around his name. She spotted Otis near the sandbox. No cameras, no team, just him. He stood when he saw them, hands in his jacket pockets. No suit today, just jeans and a navy hoodie. Warren ran toward him. Otis knelt. "Hey, little man." They hugged. Jada stayed back, watching, measuring. Otis looked up at her as Warren pulled out the toy. "This is Rexy. He came to play too." Otis smiled. "Well then, let's build him a castle." They sat in the sand together, building uneven towers and tunnels. Warren gave each part a name. "This is the mom's room. This one's Daddy's." Otis paused at the word. "Do you think I'm your dad?" he asked gently. Warren blinked. "Are you not?" Jada was too far to hear. Otis swallowed. "Would you like me to be?" Warren shrugged. "I like you. You're funny, and you don't yell." Otis smiled and placed another scoop of sand. I'd be proud to be your dad. Warren looked at him for a long time, then nodded. Okay. Jada eventually joined them. Otis stood as she approached. I didn't come here for a show, she said. I didn't prepare one, he replied. They sat on the bench while Warren climbed the jungle gym. I told him the truth, Otis said, that I'd be proud to be his father. Jada looked ahead, not at him. He already sees you that way, she said. I can't stop that. But if you're going to disappear again, tell me now. I won't. You did once. I was a boy chasing noise. I'm not that person anymore. She turned to him now. I'm still healing, Otis. I don't forgive you. Not yet. He nodded. I know. But Warren deserves all the love he can get. If you're serious, I won't get in the way. I am. They sat in silence for a moment. Can I ask something? She said finally. He nodded. Why didn't you ask about me back then, even when they said I moved on? Otis stared at his shoes. Because I was afraid they were right. She raised a brow. If I had reached out, and you didn't want me anymore, I don't think I could have handled it. She blinked. So, you'd rather believe I disappeared than risk rejection? Yes. That's cowardice. I know. Jada exhaled. You broke me, Otis. Not because you left, but because you never looked back. He whispered, I'm sorry. She looked down. That word doesn't cover 5 years. I don't want to cover it. I want to rebuild it. Warren came running. Can we get ice cream? He asked. Jada hesitated. Otis smiled. You okay with that? She glanced at him, then at Warren's hopeful eyes. Yeah. Let's go. They walked to the nearby creamery. Otis held Warren's hand. Jada walked beside them, still quiet, still unsure. But there, they sat at a small table outside, ice cream melting too fast in the sun. Warren got chocolate on his nose. Otis reached out instinctively with a napkin, gently wiping it. Jada froze. That tiny gesture. It pierced something in her chest, because that moment had never happened before. Not with anyone, only now. Afterward, they walked back toward the car. Warren skipped ahead, humming a tune from Otis's show. Otis slowed beside Jada. I don't want him on TV, she said. He looked surprised. I wasn't planning on it. No photos, no interviews, no statements. He's not a brand. Otis nodded. Agreed. And no promises you can't keep. He stopped walking. Only one. She turned. I promise to show up. Even when it's uncomfortable. Even if it's slow. I'll be there. She held his gaze. Then looked away. Good. That's all I ask. Back at her apartment, Warren fell asleep in the car. Otis carried him inside, gently placing him on the couch. He looked so peaceful. Tiny arms around Rexy, deep in dreams. Jada stood at the doorway. Otis stepped toward her. Do you need help with anything else? He asked softly. She looked at the dishes in the sink, the laundry on the chair, the unpaid bill on the counter. Then she looked back at him. Tomorrow, she said. You can help with story time. He nodded. She closed the door slowly. And for the first time in 5 years, he was on the right side of it. It became routine. Otis would arrive every evening at 6:30, knock quietly and wait patiently, even if he knew the door would open. Jada never made it easier. She didn't greet him with a smile. She didn't offer long conversations. She opened the door, handed him a book, and pointed to the couch. But she never turned him away. That was her signal, subtle, guarded, and cautious. But it was a signal. And Otis received it. Warren would light up the moment Otis walked in. Mr. Otis, we're on chapter 6. The dragon just found the lost village. Otis would take a seat on the floor, cross-legged, book open, with Warren curled beside him. Jada usually stayed in the kitchen, pretending to clean. But every so often, she'd peek in. And freeze. There was something about Otis's voice when he read. He didn't rush. He didn't overperform. He read like the words mattered, like the story deserved care. Warren leaned into every line. Otis would stop to ask questions. What would you do if the dragon was afraid? Warren's answers were always wild and sweet. I'd make him soup. Otis would chuckle. That's very kind. And Jada, hiding behind the sink, would silently wipe her eyes. One night, Warren had fallen asleep mid-sentence, head on Otis's lap. Otis kept still, not daring to breathe too hard. Jada came in quietly, ready to move him, but paused at the sight. Her son, peaceful, safe. The man who once walked away, still, steady, present. She leaned against the wall. Otis looked up. Their eyes met. Neither of them said a word. But for the first time, Jada didn't look angry. She looked tired, soft, open. After she tucked Warren into bed, she returned to the living room to find Otis cleaning up the blocks on the floor. "You don't have to do that," she said. "I want to," he replied. She walked over and sat on the edge of the couch. "Can I ask you something?" she said. Otis sat too. "Sure. Do you love him? Or do you feel responsible for him?" Otis blinked. "That's fair," he said. "But the truth is, I loved him before I even knew he was mine." She tilted her head. "He reminds me of you," Otis added. "The way he notices things. The way he sits quiet before he speaks." Jada looked away. "That scares me," she whispered. "Why?" "Because the last time someone said they loved me, they left." Otis's voice cracked. "I'm not leaving. You already did. I mean, I'm not leaving again." She studied him. "You don't get to say that like it fixes everything. I'm not trying to fix it. I'm trying to earn it." They sat in silence for a long minute. Then Jada stood. "Walk me to the park bench?" Otis looked confused. "Now?" She nodded. "Warren's asleep. It's just down the block." He grabbed his coat. They walked without talking. The cool air helped clear her head. The sidewalk under her feet felt familiar. Safe, grounded. They reached the same bench they'd sat on years ago during finals week. Back when she was tired and scared about her mom's surgery. Back when he held her hand and told her she'd never face anything alone again. She had believed him. And now they sat again, years later, older, worn, but still in sync somehow. "I used to come here after work sometimes," she said, staring at the empty swings. "I'd sit here and wonder what I did wrong." "You didn't do anything wrong," he said. "I wondered if maybe I'd been too serious, too hopeful, too me." Otis's eyes softened. "You were perfect." "No," she said with a sad smile. "I was expecting a man to keep his word. That's not perfection, that's basic." He nodded, humbled. "I'd watch other families walk by," she continued. "Fathers pushing strollers, laughing. And I'd wonder if Warren would ever get that." Otis looked down. "I wish I could go back and fix it," he said. "You can't, but I can do something else." "What?" He looked at her, steady. "I can build something better starting now." Jada studied his face. Same eyes, same voice, but the weight behind his words, that was new. She leaned back on the bench and sighed. "You'll have to deal with Sloane," she said. "We broke up." She turned to him. "She left the night of the show, said I embarrassed her. And I told her I wasn't embarrassed to be a father." Jada stared at him for a moment. "You told the truth." He nodded. Finally, a breeze swept through the trees. The moment sat heavy between them. Otis took a breath. "Jada," he said. She turned. "I want to co-parent. Be consistent. I don't want to control or interfere. I just want to be in his life." She looked at the moon. "You say that now, but what happens when work gets busy again? When producers start calling again? When your face is back on billboards?" "I say no. You've never said no to opportunity." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I've said yes to the wrong things, but this," he pointed back toward her apartment, "this is the one thing I'm not letting go of again." Jada stood up. "We'll see," she said. Otis rose beside her. "Do you trust me even a little?" She met his eyes. "I don't know if I trust you," she whispered. "But I don't hate you anymore." Otis nodded. "That's enough for now." They walked back in silence. No hand-holding, no tears. Just two people who had broken each other once, quietly choosing not to break again. The weeks that followed felt unfamiliar, but not unwelcome. Otis kept showing up, not just for Showtime story hours, but on off days too. Wednesdays when Jada had to cover a shift at the diner, Saturdays when Warren wanted to ride his scooter, Sunday afternoons at the laundromat, where he helped fold tiny socks and mismatched shirts. It was never loud, never flashy, but he was there. And slowly, Warren started depending on it. One morning, Jada woke up to the sound of Warren giggling in the kitchen. She peeked out of her bedroom, confused. Otis was wearing an apron, her apron, flipping pancakes with one hand and making airplane noises with a spoonful of yogurt in the other. Warren sat on the counter in his pajamas, feet swinging and mouth wide open. "Breakfast with the boss," Otis said cheerfully. Jada stood there, arms folded. "You picked the lock or something?" Otis turned, surprised. "No, Mom. You gave me the key last week. Said I could use it only if there's blood, fire, or babysitting." She raised a brow. He grinned. "I'm claiming babysitting. Technically." She stared at him for a moment, then walked over and poured herself coffee. "You forgot to use the non-stick pan," she said without looking at him. "Did not." She pointed to the half-burnt edge. He smirked. "Okay. Pancake truce." Warren laughed. "Pancake truce." Otis saluted. Jada shook her head, hiding a smile behind her coffee mug. Later that day, after Warren had gone to school, Jada and Otis sat on the front steps of the apartment, side by side, sharing leftover pancakes cold from the fridge. "I forgot how simple life used to be," Otis said. "It's not simple, it's just quiet," she corrected. "Quiet is underrated." She nodded. They watched cars pass. Otis turned to her. "I want to ask you something. No pressure. Just hear it before you say no." She sighed. "Go ahead. There's a retreat upstate. 3 days. No press, no glam. Just hiking, board games, and a lake. I want to take Warren." Her eyes narrowed. "Alone?" "No. I was hoping you'd come too." Jada blinked. "It's not a trick," he added. "I just want him to see us together. Laughing, existing. He deserves to see what that looks like." She stared ahead, considering it. "You're not trying to win me back. I'm trying to give him what we never had." That silenced her. "I'll think about it," she finally said. "That's all I'm asking." She didn't say yes that day, or the next. But when Friday came, she packed 2 small bags and surprised Otis by showing up with Warren already buckled in the back seat. "Don't make me regret this," she said. He lifted his hands in surrender. "Never." The retreat cabin sat at the edge of a calm lake. It was clean, warm, and simple, just like Jada liked things. Warren immediately claimed the top bunk, declared himself cabin captain, and started bossing both adults around. "No phones at dinner," he yelled playfully. "Otis, that includes you." Otis saluted again. Jada raised an eyebrow. "He's got your attitude." Otis grinned. "He's got your fire." They spent the first day hiking with a small group. Jada and Otis took turns holding Warren's hand when he got tired. Otis carried him on his shoulders for half the trail. They made up silly songs. They roasted marshmallows. At night, they played charades with strangers and let Warren stay up an hour later than usual. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Jada laughed. Really laughed. The sound startled her. Otis noticed. "You okay?" She nodded, breathless. "I forgot what that felt like." He looked at her. "I didn't." The second night was quieter. Warren had fallen asleep mid-sentence again. Jada stepped outside for air. The lake shimmered under the moonlight. Otis joined her on the deck, holding 2 mugs of tea. "I don't think I deserve this," he said. She looked at him. "I mean it. You're here." He's smiling. "We're okay. I shouldn't be allowed this after what I did." Jada sipped her tea. "Regret doesn't fix anything," I know. But responsibility can... He exhaled. I don't want to be forgiven quickly. I want to be held accountable. She nodded slowly. And you are. Every time Warren calls you Otis instead of Dad, that's accountability. Otis flinched a little. But, she added, he's getting closer. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Otis whispered, What about you? She looked over. What about me? Are we getting closer? Jada didn't answer immediately. She stared at the water, then said quietly, I don't know, but for the first time in years, I don't feel like I'm drowning. That night, while they slept in separate beds in the same cabin, something shifted. It wasn't romance. It wasn't nostalgia. It was trust, beginning to return like light through fog. Back home, life didn't go back to normal. It quietly began to reshape itself. Now, when Jada closed her bookstore shift, Otis would be waiting outside with Warren on his shoulders. When laundry day came, he'd show up with detergent already in hand. He even started sending Jada grocery deliveries without asking, just simple things: oatmeal, apple juice, fresh bread, organic strawberries Warren loved. At first, it annoyed her. I don't need you fixing things with food, she warned. I'm not, he said. I'm fixing what I broke, one small act at a time. Warren was thriving. He smiled more, asked fewer questions that broke Jada's heart. He started saying Oti instead of Mr. Otis, like they were in some secret club. He'd wait by the window every evening, and if Otis was 5 minutes late, he'd ask, should I call him? Maybe traffic got him. Jada never said no, because deep down, it meant something she hadn't dared believe before. Warren had a father now, and he was learning what it felt like to be chosen daily. One evening, after dinner, Jada stood at the sink when she heard Otis say, Hey, bud, where's that big storybook again? Warren ran down the hallway and returned with a thick blue hardcover. Jada peeked around the corner. It was The Kingdom of the Three Stars. Otis flipped through it carefully. I remember this, he murmured. Warren hopped beside him on the couch. Mommy reads it like a queen. Otis smiled. She always had the best voice. Jada rolled her eyes from the kitchen, but smiled quietly. Otis began to read. His tone was soft, his pacing perfect. Warren melted into his side, fully at peace. Jada dried her hands slowly and sat in the hallway, just close enough to listen. Halfway through the chapter, Warren looked up and whispered, I want you to read it every night. Otis paused. You sure? Warren nodded. But only if Mommy reads it too. 1 page each. You switch. Otis's voice wavered. Deal. Warren looked at the doorway. Mommy, you have to read with him. Jada sighed, stood, and walked in like it wasn't pulling her soul apart. She sat beside them. Warren passed her the book. And like they had never skipped a day, Jada began. The queen stood on the mountain, waiting for the king to return, not with riches, but with honesty. Otis read the next line. And when he arrived, he brought no gold, only his heart. And for once, that was enough. Warren clapped softly. You're both good. They continued until the last page. Then Otis closed the book and said, You know what this story is really about? Warren yawned. A queen and a king? Otis shook his head gently. It's about being brave enough to come back when you were wrong, and brave enough to let someone come back. Warren was already asleep. Jada said nothing, but her hand was still resting on the book, and so was his. Later, Otis helped clean up. He handed Jada a dish towel. Can I say something? She looked at him but didn't answer. I know this isn't what you imagined. Me, coming back late, making waffles and folding laundry like I'm making up for lost time. You are making up for lost time, she said sharply. I know. I just mean, I'm not trying to earn credit. I'm trying to earn consistency. She leaned on the counter, folding her arms. You know what consistency looks like to me, Otis? What? A man who doesn't ask for applause when he does the bare minimum. Otis nodded slowly. Got it. But... He looked up. She sighed. You've been showing up, and I notice it. He stepped forward, carefully. "I miss you," he said. Jada looked at the floor. "I miss us," he added, "but I don't want to rush what's not mine yet." She glanced at him, surprised. He smiled gently. "I'd rather be your partner in parenting than a stranger trying to win your heart back on a timeline." Jada's throat tightened. Then, for the first time in years, she leaned into his chest. Just briefly. It wasn't romantic. It wasn't final. But it was real. Sunday nights became their new tradition. Not officially, not with labels or rules, but quietly, naturally. Otis would bring a small bag of groceries, and Warren would run to the door the second he heard his knock. Jada would pretend she wasn't watching, but she always was. He'd help cook. Warren would set the table. Jada would correct their seasoning without asking. Then, after dinner, they'd sit in the living room, and Warren would choose one book. Always the same one now, The Kingdom of the Three Stars. One night, Warren fell asleep early, before they could finish chapter 5. Otis tucked him in gently, kissed his forehead, and whispered something that made Jada's eyes blur behind the hallway light. Later, she met him on the couch. The TV was on but muted. "Do you remember the first time you read to me?" she asked suddenly. Otis nodded. "The night before your Shakespeare final, you used the worst British accent." He grinned. "It was awful. But you stayed up until 2 a.m. reading Othello. I thought if you passed, maybe you'd marry me someday." Jada looked down, then up again. "I was going to say yes." He blinked. "If you had asked," she continued. "Back then, before the show, before everything." He was quiet. She reached for the remote and turned off the TV. "I'm not asking for a redo, Otis," she said. "I'm asking you to stop living like we still need one." "I'm not." She turned to him. "Then what do you want from me?" He looked at her, slow and full. "I want to keep showing up. I want to love Warren the way I should have from day one. I want to love you in a way that doesn't require an apology." Jada stared at him. Then she leaned in, barely, cautiously. And this time, when he kissed her, she didn't pull away. The next morning, Warren tiptoed out of bed and caught them sitting side by side on the couch. They weren't touching, but they looked peaceful. He whispered, "Are we a family now?" Otis glanced at Jada. Jada smiled, pulled Warren into her arms and said, "We're a family that takes its time." Otis nodded. "But we're a family," he added softly. And Warren grinned like his heart already knew. "Have you ever let someone earn their place again? Do you believe in second chances when actions speak louder than regret? Tell us in the comments. Hit like, share it with someone rebuilding something real, and subscribe to Mr. Charles Stories, where hearts don't have to be perfect to be worth keeping. The trouble started with a phone call. Otis was dropping Warren off after school, lunchbox in one hand, car keys in the other, when his phone buzzed. Clay Mendel, his longtime manager, again. Otis ignored the call. Then came a text. "It's out." She went to the press. He stared at the screen. Then another message followed. "Sloan gave an interview to the Spotlight Journal. Full spread. Claims you hid the kid. Says you lied about the breakup." Otis's heart sank. Inside the apartment, Jada was at the stove making spaghetti. Warren sat at the table humming, drawing with crayons. Otis set Warren's bag down and walked into the kitchen slowly. She noticed the look on his face right away. "What happened?" He handed her the phone. She read the headline. Exclusive. Sloan Barrett breaks her silence, betrayed, lied to, and replaced by a secret child. Beneath it was a picture of Sloan in a silk dress, sitting beside a fake potted plant, eyes glassy with perfectly placed tears. Jada let out a dry laugh. "She makes it look like a soap opera." Otis took the phone back, rubbing his forehead. "She's mad. I expected that. But the article's already everywhere. Are we mentioned?" He nodded. "They blurred Warren's face, but they mentioned you by name." Jada froze. "They what?" Otis lowered his voice. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect her to cross that line. She knows where I live, Otis." "I know." Jada clenched her jaw and stirred the sauce harder than she needed to. "I've kept him out of that world. and now his name's floating in headlines. "I'm gonna handle it," he said firmly. "You don't have to do anything. I'll shut it down." "How?" "I'll go public, on my own terms. Make it clear what really happened. You'll just pour more gas on it." Otis shook his head. "No, I'll tell the truth." She turned to him. "Then tell all of it, not just the pretty parts, not the polished version." Otis met her gaze. "I will." That night, after Warren was asleep, Otis sat at the kitchen table with his laptop open. Jada joined him. Arms crossed. "You sure about this?" He nodded. "I've already talked to Ramona Ellis. She wants an exclusive." "Ramona, from your first big interview?" "She's the only one I trust to keep it honest. She won't twist my words." Jada exhaled. "You know this means your brand will shift. You're not the ideal dad anymore." Otis smiled faintly. "Maybe now I get to be the real one." The interview aired the following week. Live, no edits. Otis sat across from Ramona in a simple studio chair. No audience. No lights angled for perfection. Just him and a single camera. She didn't waste time. "You walked off your show after being confronted live by a boy claiming you left his mother. What happened in that moment?" Otis didn't flinch. "I realized the script I'd been reading wasn't the life I wanted anymore." "And the boy? Warren. He's your son?" Otis looked into the lens. "Yes. He's my son." Ramona paused. "You didn't know about him?" "I didn't. I was told Jada had moved on, that she didn't want contact. I believed that because it was easier to accept than the idea that I'd failed someone I loved." "And did you love her?" Otis breathed slowly. "I still do." In the apartment, Jada sat on the couch watching. Warren was asleep in her lap. She tightened her hold on him. Ramona continued. "What would you say to the people calling you fake? Who say you built a brand on fatherhood while abandoning your own? I'd say they're right to question me. Because I was fake. I let other people shape my image while I ignored the truth. But I've changed, and I'm showing up now. For my son, for Jada, and for myself. What about Sloane Barrett's claims?" Otis straightened. "Sloane is hurt. I understand that. But her hurt doesn't change the facts. I didn't cheat. I didn't lie. I was a coward who didn't follow up on the truth. That's on me. And what now?" Ramona asked gently. "Are you trying to win them back?" Otis smiled softly. "I'm trying to be worth staying for." The video was shared over 2 million times in 24 hours. The comments section overflowed. "This is how accountability looks." He didn't blame anyone. Respect. Protect that woman and that child. The tide shifted. Otis wasn't cancelled. He was humanized. Still, Jada remained cautious. She didn't throw open the door. She kept boundaries. But she also kept watching. And what she saw was a man refusing to hide anymore. He did interviews that gave Warren no mention. He rejected endorsement deals. He cancelled all book projects until further notice. And every day, every single day, he came home to help with bedtime. One night, as he put Warren's shoes away, he looked at Jada and said, "If I offered to leave everything, the fame, the brand, the show, would you ask me to stay?" She looked at him long and hard. "I wouldn't ask," she said, "but I'd leave the door open." He nodded. "That's enough." A week after the Ramona Ellis interview, Otis sat across from Clay Mendel for the first time in nearly a month. The office hadn't changed. Polished floors, designer wall clocks, and an assistant outside the door typing away like nothing in Otis's world had just collapsed and reassembled itself. Clay sipped his espresso like it was any normal Monday. "We've got 3 offers on the table," he began. 2 want you to host under a co-parenting theme. 1 wants a rebrand, real fathers only. Otis raised an eyebrow. "You're serious?" Clay didn't flinch. "You're more valuable now, more relatable. You cried on camera. You told the truth. They love it." "I wasn't auditioning, Clay." "I know," Clay said. "But TV doesn't care. You're authentic now. We can do something with that." Otis leaned forward. "I didn't come to talk about shows." Clay folded his hands. "Then why are you here?" I'm done. With the offers? No, with all of it. I'm stepping away, not just temporarily. I'm out. Clay's jaw twitched. You're throwing away a $12 million contract. Otis nodded. Clay chuckled bitterly. For what? The girl you left 5 years ago and the kid you didn't know about? Otis stood. For the family I'm not leaving again. Later that evening, Jada found him sitting in the laundry room, folding socks with quiet intensity. She leaned against the doorframe. You okay? He looked up, then shrugged. I quit today. Her eyes narrowed. You quit the network? Everything. She stepped in. Otis. He kept folding. Clay thinks I'm crazy. He said I was built for this. Jada walked closer. You were... He looked at her. She continued, but maybe you're built for something more. He nodded once, then picked up a tiny shirt and smiled. I'm thinking about starting something else. A non-profit. Something that helps single parents who didn't get the help they deserved. Jada paused. You serious? I've already registered the domain. She smiled. What's it called? He met her eyes. Whole again. The next morning, Otis stood in the school parking lot, watching as Warren ran inside. He turned to Jada. I know I'm not perfect. I know I've got a lot to rebuild. But I've been thinking. She raised an eyebrow. Dangerous. He chuckled. I don't want Warren to grow up wondering why we live in separate homes if we love each other. She froze slightly. Otis softened his voice. I'm not asking you to move fast. I'm asking you to think about what peace could look like if we built it together. Jada didn't answer, but she didn't walk away either. Later that week, they attended a parent-teacher meeting together. The teacher said Warren was bright, polite, and one of the most emotionally intelligent kids I've ever met. He's curious, she said, but also calm. He listens before he talks. Jada smiled. He's always been like that. Otis added, he takes after his mother. The teacher looked between them. You two co-parent very well. Neither corrected her. They just exchanged a glance, wordless but loud. That night, after Warren fell asleep, Jada and Otis sat on the porch. The city hummed quietly around them. Their neighborhood was slow but steady, like their rhythm. Jada spoke first. I've been thinking. Otis sat up straighter. I don't want to make decisions based on fear anymore, she said. Fear of you leaving. Fear of Warren getting hurt. Fear of trusting again. He stayed silent. She turned toward him. I'm not saying yes to everything, but I am saying I'm not saying no anymore. Otis let out a slow breath. I can live with that. They sat quietly, her head resting on his shoulder for the first time in 5 years. The next morning, Warren climbed into bed between them, innocently, sleepily. He didn't say a word. He just curled into the warm middle space where both of them had chosen to stay. Otis stood in the middle of the kitchen, holding a carton of eggs like it was the key to world peace. Wait, how many am I cracking again? Jada leaned on the counter, hiding a smile. 2. And make sure you don't drop any shells this time. Give me some credit, he said, cracking one confidently. The yolk hit the counter. Otis. I panicked. Warren, sitting on a stool with a spoon in his mouth, burst out laughing. Daddy can't cook. Otis wiped the counter, grinning. Daddy's learning, okay. It had been 4 weeks since the night on the porch. 4 weeks of baby steps, shared mornings and weekend routines. Warren adjusted fast. For a kid who never had a full-time father, he welcomed Otis like a missing puzzle piece that finally fit. But for Jada, it wasn't about speed. It was about rhythm. Trust didn't come from promises. It came from consistency. And Otis had shown up. At bedtime, Otis sat cross-legged beside Warren's bed. 3 bears again? He asked, holding the book. Nope, Warren said, eyes wide. Tell me the story about when you were a kid and got chased by a dog. Otis winced. You really like that one, huh? Warren giggled. The part where you climbed the tree and cried like a baby. Otis raised a brow. Excuse you, I was 10. That's a perfectly reasonable age to panic. Jada stood at the door watching them, arms folded. The scene still stunned her, how natural it looked. The two people she loved most in the world, laughing under dim lamplight. Saturday morning came with blue skies and the smell of pancakes. Otis insisted on making them, though the kitchen paid the price. He wore an apron that read, "Mr. Flip It Good." Warren had picked it out. Jada walked in with her hair tied up, wearing his oversized t-shirt. She froze. Why does the kitchen look like a flower tornado exploded in it? I was experimenting. With fire? Otis grinned. Sit down, Miss Critic. Breakfast is served. The pancakes were misshapen, but Warren clapped like it was gourmet dining. Mummy, you gotta try it. She took one bite. It wasn't perfect, but it was made with love. Later that day, they took a walk down Jefferson Park. Warren raced ahead, pointing out squirrels and making up stories about them being secret agents. Look, that one has a nut laser. Jada laughed. I see it. Otis walked slowly beside her. He glanced over. You happy? I'm okay. He nodded. I'll take okay. They stopped under a tree. She looked at him. Why now? She asked. Why all this effort after all these years? Otis sighed. Because I know what it feels like to lose a good thing. And I don't want to live the rest of my life knowing I never tried to get it back. Her eyes searched his. And because I'm scared too, he said. Scared of failing, scared of getting it wrong, but more scared of waking up one day and realizing I didn't fight for my family. The next week, Otis brought home a surprise. It was a blank journal. On the cover, letters to Warren. What's this? Jada asked. I thought, maybe every day I could write him a short note. Something he can read when he's older. Lessons, memories, apologies. Jada stared at the cover, her eyes soft. Can I write in it too? He handed her a second pen. I hoped you would. One day after school, Warren came home holding a small piece of paper. I drew something, he said shyly. It was a crayon drawing of 3 stick figures holding hands. Above them, in scribbled letters, my family. Jada bent down. Is that us? He nodded. Me, you, and Daddy. I like when we're together. Otis took the paper with care, like it was a rare artifact. He taped it to the fridge. Jada added a magnet that said, Home is who you're with. One night, as Otis tucked Warren in, the little boy whispered, Are you going to marry Mommy again? Otis smiled. We were never married, buddy. Oh, Warren looked confused. But you love her, right? Otis nodded slowly. I do. Warren pulled the blanket up. Then you should. She likes flowers. And chicken nuggets. Otis chuckled. I'll keep that in mind. The next day, Jada found a note on her pillow. It read, Tomorrow night, dress nice, trust me. She showed up at the community theater downtown. A small jazz band played outside. Otis was waiting in a navy blazer, holding a single sunflower. She raised a brow. What is this? A redo. He led her inside. The stage had one table set in the center. Candles, soft music. Warren was with Narissa. Tonight was theirs. As they sat, Otis reached across the table. No cameras, no scripts, just me, just you. Jada exhaled. This is surreal. I wanted our story to have a chapter we chose, not one we fell into. That night, they walked home hand in hand under a street lamp glow. She paused by her doorstep. You think you're ready to be more than OT now? She teased. He leaned in. I'm ready to be whatever you need, so long as it's with you. She kissed him first this time, not out of nostalgia, but from peace. Love wasn't rushing back. It was being rebuilt. One bedtime, one burnt pancake, one drawing at a time. Clay Mendel slammed his tablet on the desk. You're trending again, top 5 on every platform. But for the wrong reason. Otis didn't flinch. You mean for the true reason. You walked off a national show. For a kid and a woman with no clout. That kid is my son. And that woman raised him alone. Clay rubbed his temples. You're throwing away your legacy. Otis stood tall. No, I'm rewriting it. Across town, Jada adjusted her blazer in front of the mirror. The producer had insisted she wear soft colors, natural makeup. She didn't care. She wore what made her feel strong. Warren sat on her lap backstage, holding a small toy camera. "I'm gonna take your picture, like Otis used to do," he said. Jada smiled. "You better get my good side." Otis entered, holding a bottle of water. "You ready?" She took a deep breath. "As I'll ever be." The lights were bright. The set had changed since Otis first sat there years ago. Now, it was Ramona Ellis holding the cue cards. "Welcome back, America," she said to the camera. "Today, we have a story that's gripped hearts across the country." She turned to her guests. Otis Langford, once a golden boy of daytime TV, stepped away from fame for a woman and child no one knew existed. Today, he introduces them to the world. Otis looked calm. Jada held Warren gently on her lap. Ramona smiled warmly. "So, Otis, why now?" He looked at the camera. "Because I was lying to millions while the truth was waiting at home. I said I believed in family, but I didn't show up for mine. That changes today." Ramona turned to Jada. "How does it feel to go from forgotten to front page?" Jada's voice was firm. "I didn't ask for front page. I asked for fatherhood, for accountability, for peace." The audience clapped. Ramona leaned in. "What kept you going?" Jada glanced down at Warren. "Him." When the interview aired, it went viral within hours. Clips flooded social media. Otis Langford's redemption. The boy who called her mommy. From host to father. One tweet read, "He left her. The kid called him out. Now he's showing up." This is the real love story. Even critics softened. Sloane, however, did not. She appeared on a rival talk show, spewing bitterness. "He's playing hero now, but I was there when he chased lights instead of love. Let's not pretend he's a saint." Otis didn't respond. Jada did. She posted a photo of Warren holding both their hands with a simple caption, "Healing doesn't need cameras, it needs presence." Otis focused on home. He took fewer public appearances, launched a small podcast on fatherhood and failure. It didn't have millions of views, but it had meaning. He titled it, "First Steps." The intro always began the same. Every story has a day one. Mine began with a question on live TV. At home, life wasn't perfect, but it was real. Warren brought home spelling tests and jokes about worms. Otis became the math tutor. Jada the story queen. One evening, Warren stood in the living room wearing a makeshift cape. "I'm Super Warren, and my superpower is making people laugh." He spun, crashed into Otis's leg. Jada laughed. "You okay?" Otis clutched his shin. "Barely. But I'm proud." That night, after Warren slept, Jada curled up beside Otis on the couch. "You ever miss the lights?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but only for a second. Then I look at you two, and I realize this is what I was chasing." She rested her head on his chest. "Took you long enough." He chuckled. "Worth every mile." One Sunday morning, Narissa showed up with balloons and a smirk. "I'm just here for the pancakes and updates." Otis flipped another one onto the plate. "Tell me it's round this time," she teased. "Improving," he said. Warren ran up. "Auntie Rissa, look what I drew." It was a picture of a house with 3 stick figures again. But this time, above the drawing, it read, "Home." Narissa smiled. "You did good, sis." Jada wrapped her arms around Warren. "We all did." 6 months later, the 3 of them stood in front of a new house. Nothing fancy, just space, a swing, a porch. Warren ran through the yard like he'd been there his whole life. Otis held Jada's hand. "I want to marry you." She turned. "You sure?" "No ring, no press, just us, this backyard." "Warren handing us flowers." She smiled. "Then I say yes." And that's how it happened. No tux, no gown. Just a boy with dandelions, 2 vows spoken under the trees, and a kiss that rewrote the ending. Not all love stories are loud. Some are quiet rebuilds, and some begin the moment a little boy calls a woman mommy in front of the world. Otis, breakfast is getting cold. Jada's voice echoed from the kitchen. Otis emerged from the hallway, shirt halfway buttoned, tie in hand, balancing a juice box and Warren's sock. This tiny human owns me. Jada grinned as she flipped the last pancake. You're only figuring that out now. Warren came sliding into the kitchen, wearing one shoe and superhero pajamas. Daddy, did you pack my Spider-Man lunchbox? Did I ever forget it? Otis asked. Yes. Warren shot back, giggling. You put your podcast mic in it one time. They all laughed. It was loud, messy, warm. Exactly what Jada never imagined she'd get 5 years ago in that cramped apartment. Later that day, Otis dropped Warren at school. As he buckled him in, he kissed his forehead. Be kind, be smart, and don't tell people you're richer than them, Warren recited. Otis laughed. Right. That too. Back home, Otis walked in to find Jada on the phone, pacing. Her voice was low but firm. Yes, I'll email the draft tonight. No, I'm not changing the main character's voice. Black women don't need to be softened for white readers. Otis leaned against the wall, proud. Jada had started writing again. Not for fame, for healing. A publisher had finally agreed to her debut novel, based on a single mother who raised a boy alone. She titled it Page 1. That evening, while folding laundry, Otis brought it up. Your book's gonna change lives. I just want to tell the truth, she said, about how hard it is, how lonely. But also how it's not the end. He stepped closer. Can I write the foreword? She raised an eyebrow. You gonna be honest? I'll say I was the fool who almost missed out on magic. She smiled, then tossed a sock at him. On the podcast, Otis spoke about failure more than fame. Listeners emailed stories of fathers who vanished. Some returned, some didn't. He never claimed perfection. He simply said, show up today. Even if yesterday was ugly, his numbers were modest but loyal. Warren had adjusted too. He no longer pointed at the TV saying, that's Otis. He now pointed at the dinner table and said, pass the rice, Daddy. One night, Otis tucked him in and asked, hey, what do you want to be now? Warren thought for a long moment. Happy, he said. Otis swallowed hard. Good answer. But peace wasn't without testing. One morning, while walking through a grocery store, Otis spotted a paparazzo at the end of the aisle. He leaned in close to Jada. Camera, at 3 o'clock. She rolled her eyes. You want to leave? No. I want to buy these Cheerios and kiss my wife in front of the cereal. He did both. The next day, the tabloid read, Otis Langford chooses love over lights. The internet mostly clapped back, but some trolls found their way online. She trapped him. She only got lucky because of the kid. She's not even pretty. Otis saw them first. He blocked what he could, but Jada saw them too. That night, she sat on the porch, staring out. I knew it would come, she said. I'll make them stop, he offered. She shook her head. You don't fight back with noise. You fight with joy. Otis sat beside her. Together, they watched the stars. Weeks passed. Then came the email. A major network offered Jada a speaking slot at their Women's Empowerment Summit. They want me to speak about resilience, she said, stunned. Otis beamed. Baby, they don't even know half your story. She squeezed his hand. I want to take you and Warren with me. You sure? I want the world to see who stood beside me when it counted. The event was packed. Jada stood backstage, heart pounding. Otis whispered in her ear, You got this. Warren gave her a crumpled drawing, her, him, and Otis, surrounded by hearts. She stepped up to the mic and told the story of a woman who was left behind, raised a child with nothing and rebuilt not just her life, but her love. The crowd stood by the end. Tears, cheers, laughter. When she exited, Otis held her tight. You weren't just strong, he said. You were unforgettable. Back home, the rhythm continued. Otis cooked. Jada wrote, Warren asked weird questions like, do ants sleep? One night, they all sat on the floor, building puzzles. Warren turned to Otis. Did you always love Mummy? Otis looked at Jada. Yeah, he said quietly. Always. Then why did you leave her before? The question was gentle, honest. Jada tensed. Otis reached for Warren's hand. Because sometimes people get scared when things are real. I was afraid I couldn't be everything, so I became nothing instead. Warren blinked. But you came back. Otis smiled. And I'll never leave again. Jada's throat tightened. Love, after all, wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence. A few months later, Otis got a call. Not from his agent, not from a producer. From Ramona Ellis, the same talk show host who had introduced him to America years ago. Otis, she said, I want you back on the show. But this time, not as the star. As a man with something real to say. He hesitated. Will Jada and Warren be comfortable with that? I'll make sure they're treated with respect, Ramona promised. The world needs this story. He brought the idea to Jada that night while folding laundry. Baby, he said slowly. Ramona called. She turned. About what? She wants us on her show. Together. Jada went quiet. He didn't push. When she spoke, her voice was steady. I'll do it, but not to clear your name, or mine. We'll speak the truth. That's all. Otis nodded. The truth is more than enough. The studio was brighter than Jada remembered. She'd watched it before, when Otis was the polished, charming host with a perfect smile and no past. Now, she stood in the wings holding her son's hand. Otis looked nervous. Warren looked excited. Mummy, are we famous now? She chuckled. You've always been my star. The lights dimmed. Ramona introduced them. Tonight, we're not talking about celebrity. We're talking about accountability, family, and the power of showing up. Late, but for real. Otis held Warren in his lap. Jada sat beside him, her back straight, her presence quiet but unshakable. Ramona didn't go easy. Otis, she asked, how do you go from abandoning the woman you loved to calling yourself a father on national TV? The audience held their breath. Otis took a long pause. I think some people confuse visibility with presence, he said. I thought being seen meant I was doing something. But Jada, she was in the trenches. She did the real work. I was a coward. Ramona turned to Jada. And you forgave him? I forgave myself first, Jada said, for believing I didn't deserve more. And when he came back, not with words but actions, I let my son decide. Kids know love when they see it. The moment went viral, not because of drama, because it was rare. A man owned up, a woman told the truth, and a child smiled between them. Backstage, Jada held Warren, while Otis took questions from the press. A young female reporter pulled Jada aside. Can I ask, how did you not let it break you? Jada thought for a long moment. I let it bend me, she said, but I didn't snap. I remembered who I was before the pain, and I decided to protect her. Weeks later, Warren got his own surprise. His school held a Bring Your Parent to Class Day. Most kids brought one. Warren brought two. Jada read a poem. Otis shared a funny story about spilling coffee on Beyoncé once. The kids laughed. Warren stood up proudly and said, My mommy writes books. My daddy tells the truth. The class clapped. Jada's eyes welled up. Otis squeezed her hand. In spring, they moved to a new house. It wasn't a mansion. It wasn't about showing off. It was about finally having a backyard big enough for a swing and a garden. Jada planted tomatoes. Warren watered them. Otis burned the barbecue, twice, but it was theirs. Warren's room had glow-in-the-dark stars on the ceiling. The living room had a wall full of books and baby photos. No press, no lights, no scripts, just life. One evening, while watching the sunset from the porch, Jada leaned her head on Otis's shoulder. You ever wonder what would have happened if I didn't show up that day? All the time, he whispered. I was already dying slowly inside. Fame doesn't hug you when the cameras go off. She turned to him. So what hugs you now? He smiled. You, Warren. This porch, these tomatoes. She laughed. He kissed her forehead. Their life wasn't perfect. There were days of tension, moments of misunderstanding. But there was also morning laughter, school runs, bedtime stories, and a kitchen full of music and crumbs. Otis gave up the show. He started a new podcast, Father, interrupted. It wasn't flashy, but it was honest. He interviewed fathers who came back after failing, mothers who held things down, kids who forgave. He invited Jada on the first episode. She titled it, "Forgiveness is Grown, Not Given." On Warren's 6th birthday, they threw a small party in the park. Jada baked the cake. Otis forgot the balloons. Warren didn't care. He ran around in his superhero cape, yelling, "This is the best day ever!" Later that night, while tucking him in, he asked, "Mummy, will you and Daddy get married again?" Jada blinked. "Again? You were already married in your hearts, right?" Otis leaned in. Smart kid. Jada looked at him. He didn't rush. But a week later, he brought her to the same bench they once sat on during their first walk back together. He didn't kneel. He didn't need to. He simply said, "Let's not let the past stop the future anymore." She nodded, and cried, and kissed him. They got married in her mother's backyard, barefoot. Warren was the ring bearer. Narissa officiated. Ramona attended quietly in the back, dabbing tears with her sunglasses. There was no PR, just vows and music and family. The wind rustled the curtains. Soft jazz played on the radio. Otis stood at the kitchen window, watching Jada and Warren in the backyard. Warren was trying to teach their golden retriever to jump through a hula hoop. It wasn't going well, but his giggles made it worth it. Jada was barefoot in the grass, hair tied up, face calm. Otis smiled. This was his show now. No scripts, no spotlight, no pretending. Just the life he almost lost and finally fought to keep. Inside, the walls told a story. Family portraits lined the hallway. One frame held a photo from their small backyard wedding. Warren's face was frozen mid-laugh, chocolate icing on his cheek. Another showed Otis reading a bedtime story, Jada correcting him, Warren pretending to sleep but clearly listening. The house felt lived in, loved in. That night, Otis tucked Warren in. "Daddy?" "Yeah, buddy? Do you think it's okay to make mistakes?" Otis sat on the bed's edge. "I think it's okay to make them, as long as you learn from them and make things right." Warren nodded. "You made a mistake, right?" Otis smiled. "A big one. But you came back." "I did. Then I'm proud of you." Otis blinked. His chest tightened. He leaned down and hugged his son. "I'm proud of you too." Later, on the porch, Otis sat beside Jada. Stars twinkled above them. "You know," she said, "I used to dream of this. Not the house or the fame, just peace." He wrapped his arm around her. "You gave that to me," he said. "Not the other way around." "No," she said softly. "We gave it to each other." Silence settled in, not empty, but full. A silence made of healed wounds, second chances, and quiet strength. A knock interrupted their stillness. It was Narissa, with pie. "No reason," she said. "Just missed y'all." They laughed, poured wine, shared stories from the past and hopes for the future. Later, after Narissa left and Warren was asleep, Otis walked to his podcast mic. He recorded quietly, voice low, heart open. "I used to think being seen was the same as being known," he said. "But it's not. You can be on every screen and still be invisible to the people who matter." He paused. "My son called her Mommy on live TV, but I was the one who had to learn how to call her mine, again, with honesty." He looked over at Jada, who had fallen asleep on the couch, her hand resting on the book she never finished. "I don't need the world to clap anymore. I just need her hand in mine, and my son's laughter in the next room." He ended the recording, saved it, named the file, The View We Built. Moral of the story: Love is not just about grand gestures. It's about showing up when it's uncomfortable, when it's hard, when it's late. Real love isn't found. It's chosen again and again, even after mistakes. If this story moved you, share it with someone who's still waiting for their peace. Comment below if you believe love can rise again from pain. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow Mr. Charles' Stories, where love is honest, healing is real, and family doesn't always start the way you expect. See you in the next story. Until then, stay kind, stay true,